What's going on, everyone on YouTube? Is Geoffrey again. Today we're doing yet another creepypasta. And this one is a request by the YouTuber XVII. I don't know the numerals. I think the number in Roman is 17 or something. I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna read Rainbow Factory. Now this is gonna be pretty long, just like the cupcake story. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get to this. Now, A Rainbow's Tale isn't quite as nice as the story we knew of Sugar and Spice. There's long been rumors as to how exactly rainbows are made in Equestria. While a great amount of Pegasi ponies are employed in the rainbow department of the weather factory, almost all of them do the low-end work. What's known is that great streams of spectra, the individual colors of the rainbow, flow through large gates into vast vats. From there, workers carefully and equally mix the spectra into the corrugated rainbow pools that dot and run through the factory and surrounding city. Next, that mixture is pumped through the floor below, while other employees atomize it and store it until the active weather Pegasi deploy into the field. However, no one knows how individual spectra is made. Supplies are never really seen being brought in, leaving not even a clue what goes into a rainbow tourist. When visiting the factory are treated to extremely foreboding and plain wall, with massive solid doors bearing entry to any pony at any time. While most of the facilities' various signs and architecture is bubbly and warming and welcoming, the Rainbow Factory's upper floors protected by harsh imagery of potential hazards and death, and the cloud wall was not made out of the clean white of the rest of the city, but of a black, quietly thundering fog. To become an employee of the Upper Rainbow Factory meant sacrificing any life outside those black walls. Workers are sworn to secrecy and forbidden from leaving and live in the facility itself. Those few that ever managed to make it out, not in the body bag, were twisted and disturbed, too damaged to ever bring themselves to talk about it. A lot of theories were proposed. Dark magic from captured unicorns, chemicals and environmental hazards that no sane pony would tolerate, and even thoughts of another unknown sister of Celestia's, destined to create the spectra instead of raising the sun or the moon. None of them could be farther than the truth. But a rainbow's easy once you get to know it with the help of the magic of the Pegasus device. "Come on, Orion, we gotta be late for our final test," Skulu called to a friend of hers. She was older now. In her last year of flight school, she, like all other Pegasus in the school, was terribly nervous about this final test. Those that passed were granted freedom into the world to find their key marks if they haven't yet, and becoming working ponies. Little is known, or at least little thought about, fact was what happened to the fillies that failed their test. While uncommon, one or two from every class generally didn't have it in them to perform this rigorous act and maneuvers. Those that failed their tests were looked down upon in the worst ways, shunned and hated. Cloudsdale had always bred a form of nationalism amongst its occupants. If you weren't the best or didn't show the potential of being the greatest, you weren't allowed to be part of the glorious collective. Skulu moved a little to the side as Orion, a tall yet fairly skinny pony, settled next to her. He fluffed his light brown feathers and gave a worried attempt at the smile as he stared around where he sat. They were sitting in a large open room overlooking the Coliseum, with all the other graduating Pegasi. Just visible in the distance was the factory. Orion glanced at it and gulped. "What's the matter, Orion? You afraid of getting a dead-end job on the snow line?" Orion chuckled a bit, then closed his eyes and sighed. "No, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. What if I fail? What if I don't fail? But do just bad enough to be still disliked by everyone? I don't know if I can take being departed. Where do we even go, anyways?" Skulu gave Orion a friendly punch. No one knows, you dolt. And we're not going to fail. Everyone here is going to be fine. I know I will at least pass, she laughed. Thanks to the tips from Rainbow Dash, I'm sure to be fine. Oh yeah, sure, that reassures me. That's actually just as, if not even more reassuring than the psychopathic hate every pony here seems to love to spread. Quit panicking, Scaredy Wings, Skulu replied. The only thing here I think might even fail is that yellow pony with the dark green mane. She's the one who was out sick for that month, you know. Oh yeah, Orion remembered as he craned his head in the other pony's direction. The one who had a bad case of hoof and wing. She seems pretty confident, though. I suppose we'll see, Skulu trialed. Looking to look at the factory herself, it gave her chills. Not of fear, but pride. I hope I get some cool active weather job. Can you imagine everyone in Ponyville or Philadelphia staring up at me, going, there goes Skulu, such an amazing flyer, and from Cloudsdale there can be no doubt. She smiled in excitement, forgetting her tension for the moment. That would be something, I admit. Mind you, just coming from Cloudsdale, who wouldn't be in awe? Exactly. Praise the flock. Praise the flock. Places, every pony. A massive buff Pegasus walked towards the entrance to the Coliseum. We're going to do this by name. Your educators are on the east side of the field. I repeat, do not fly too far west. If they lose sight of you for any reason, you'll be failed. Immediately, take deep breaths. Stretch your wings one last time. The test will consist of 3 sections: weather clearing, agility, and finally, recovery. Clear the clouds, fly through the hoops, and then fly to the marked elevation. Close your wings for at least 3 seconds, any less, and you'll fail. But keep in mind that there's no extra points for extra seconds. Finally, recover before you hit the cloud floor. Understood? Any questions? The instructor paused and carefully glanced at every single pony in the room. Everyone's eyes were completely focused on him, and none were creased with confusion. Alright, Aurora Dawn, you're up first. Clear, fly, fall, complete. The yellow pony nodded and walked quickly up to the starting ramp with purpose. She stared at the watching judges, waited for a nod from all 3, then took off with powerful force. The ramp bounced slightly from the force of the takeoff. Every pony watched as Aurora quickly reached the starting altitude and began a direct and purposeful attack on the positioned clouds. With expert timing and intelligent angles, the sky was soon empty of any moisture. Skulu and Orion watched with open mouths as they watched the first, performer pull first with tight turns, expertly shooting dead center through each and every hoop. Finally, Aurora pulled herself up to the proper altitude, hovered, and closed her wings. The group of students gasped as she started plummeting down towards the clouds and counted breathlessly. 1, 2, 3. They sighed as they watched her wings open in the correct amount of time. Collectively, holding their relief, suddenly Aurora's wings whipped upwards, and the group of students flinched in horror as they all heard the loud, hollow snap, only to be suddenly replaced by an unending, piercing scream. Many, like Orion, shielded their eyes with their wings, as others, like Skulu, could only watch, terrified, as the blur of yellow, green, and red plummeted into a cloud with a dull thump. Wasting no time, the instructor walked forward again as the 3 judges simply pointed down and started shuffling papers again around, speaking loudly as if nothing had happened. He called out again, Daisy Fields, clear, fly, fall, complete. Skulu and Orion stared slack-jawed as another pony gulped, then walked forwards onto the path and took off. They turned back to the tuft on the cloud where Aurora landed and stared. As the wind blew the fragments that were thrown up from the collision away, they saw the shivering yellow body attempt to move, only to collapse with a cry. Faraday spots. Clear, fly, fall, complete. Aurora still struggled to walk, wailing, with every step. Her legs weren't broken. She could use them fine, but it was obvious the pain was from her wing joints, and the loss of her potential life was crushing her. Skulu felt Orion shuffled uneasily, tears welling from his eyes as a frown formed on his face. Holiday shine, clear, fly, fall, complete. No one's coming to help her. Orion seethed through closing teeth. Skulu felt extremely sad for the yellow Pegasus, but couldn't see herself helping her. She could be failed herself and sent away, far away from Cloudsdale and any familiar place on Equestria, to a place where she and any other failed students could never stain Cloudsdale's reputation. It was a terrible shame, but Skulu couldn't fail herself. She couldn't fail her friends, and she definitely could not fail Rainbow Dash. Not after the care and help she had given Skulu's whole life. Skulu blinked the tears from her eyes and forced herself to watch the competing students, one after another took off, successfully passed the test, and flew to the east gate. Under the judge's spot in the stands, that's all Skulu focused on. Pass the test, fly to the gate, live a happy life. Orion's solstice. Clear, fly, fall, complete. No. What? The instructor took a step back, one leg left, raised in the air. You can't just refuse your flight test. Get out there before you piss the judges off. No. Don't even pretend you care about my future if you don't care about hers. Orion defied, unsure about himself. You say you want me to get a good life, and yet you let those fail under and suffer unbearable pain? Get the fuck onto that field before I fail you myself, the instructor shouted menacingly. Fine, Orion spoke sharply before walking onto the ramp. He stared at the judges, waited for the individual nods, and the second they came, he took off. However, long before the starting altitude, he turned sharply and landed gently next to Aurora. She turned and looked at him, blood running down her forehead and sides, and tears streamed down her face. What are you doing? You'll fail like me. You'll be exiled. I'd rather be exiled from a place that treats ponies than live my life while others don't live theirs. Aurora smiled, happiness briefly replacing her sadness in her black and puffy eyes until she stumbled again and intense pain flashed across her body. Orion leaned in close, using his wing to brace the yellow pony against himself. He stared up at the judges, beaming hate with his vision. They stared down unaffected and simply pointed down before looking back at the ramp for the next contestant. Skulu stood shocked, hardly hearing her name called. She moved numbly up the ramp, never taking her eyes off her friend and the pony who sacrificed himself to help. After a brief moment, she shook her head, recovered her thoughts, and looked down to the judges. Thoughts passed through her head as she watched them all nod. Oh, Celestial, what do? I can't let everyone I know down, but I'll never see Orion again. I hope he knew that risk when he did that. I'm sure he's thinking the same right now. She glanced at Orion. He wasn't looking at her. She took off heartbroken. Instinct kicked in as the familiar rush of wind cooled her and blew her thoughts away. She stopped at the right altitude, then launched again, sensing and seeing every cloud, formulating a game plan. In a matter of a couple dozen seconds, the sky was clear. She did a quick loop in mid-flight, aiming at the first hoop. With a powerful flash of her wings, she propelled forward through the first ring, and then the second and the third, expertly turning and drifting. She curved in towards the second last ring, near the bottom of the field. As she descended, she was caught sight of Orion and Aurora, almost at the west gate now. Orion turned his head and smiled weakly. Skulu's focus shattered. Orion knew what he did. He cared about her. He missed her, and he never get to say goodbye. Skulu cranked into the bottom part of the ring, falling backwards several feet and hitting the ground. With a sudden intense flash of fear, she flipped herself onto her feet and began flapping her wings, levitating off the ground. Maybe that didn't count as a failure. She thought, I can still fly. There was a distraction on the field. She spun around to the judges. 3 hooves pointed down. Skulu started crying there, tears welling up and blurring her vision. This wasn't right. This shouldn't have happened. None of it. Orion should have passed his test and cheered her on from the east gate. She shouldn't have looked at him. She could have focused on flying, but there was no room for excuses. Defeated, she slowly hovered down towards Orion and settled down next to him. She looked at him with her purple eyes. He looked back, offering a smile. "You did a good job." Scootaloo dropped her head and sobbed. She then walked around Orion, lifted a wing of her own, and helped Aurora to the west gate. Before them stood a long, unlit hall, with only a cheap sign stuck to the wall, notifying test failures to proceed down the hall. They waited only briefly to gather themselves and prepare for where they would be taken, and then all stepped forward together. Let's delve deeper into rainbow philosophy, far beyond that of classical mythology. It's easy to misjudge that flowing city with its alluring decor and social psychology. Again, an empty carriage at the lonely hall were 3 imposing ponies, leaning in a disinterested and bored pose. One of them stumbled to look up as the sorry-looking trio stumbled out into the open. They were on the bottom edge of the Colosseum, with the vast rolling halls and plains of Equestria visible far below. "Hey boss, we got them worthless Pegasus," the first one called to an even bigger pony on the other side of the carriage. "I suppose it's to get work time, isn't it?" "Cool it, hotshot. There may be more too." "No, I was the last one to go," Scootaloo spoke in sobs. Orion could only hang his head. It's... She paused and breathed deeply, determined to remain as strong as she could. "It's just us 3. Aurora's wings, they're broken. She needs help." "Ain't that just a crying shame, is it? What's it to us? All that better she don't come flying back to us no more." "We may have failed our damn test, but that doesn't mean we're not worth keeping alive," Scootaloo shouted in a flash of rage. She was determined to hold on to as much dignity as she could. All right, sheesh. Hey, Patches, doctor her up before we head out. I don't want any blood on them seats. I just washed that thing. You other 2 in the cart." Orion and Scootaloo hopped into the carriage and got as comfortable as they could on the hard seats, but made sure to leave room for Aurora. As soon as the third of the large ponies finished bandaging up her wings, Aurora carefully stepped into the vehicle and lay down on the bench at the back. Scootaloo inched closer to her and leaned down to talk to as the door to the carriage slammed shut. The boss pony was inside the back, standing by the door, watching at them, each of them. So, Scootaloo began quietly, trying not to speak too loud. "You're Aurora. I'm Scootaloo. I'm sorry we have to meet like this." "Any meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting," Aurora spoke gently, with sincerity in her eyes. "We did our best. That's all we can say. That's all any of us could say. Who's to say that the city of the deported isn't a good one anyways?" The thought struck Scootaloo as she considered it. No one was ever told about where the Pegasi would be brought. Most ponies considered it to be some odd land where the zebras hailed from. That made Scootaloo realize something even more profound. Hey, if we're taken to where Zakara's from, then there's gotta be a way to get back. It's not as if we're banned from Equestria. Fluttershy, an old friend of mine, she's a Pegasus who lives in Ponyville. She never passed flight school. She never took her test. They never come and taken her away. Exactly, Aurora agreed with a nod. Orion overheard and offered his thoughts. "I think the reason we're sent far away is because no pony from Cloudsdale ever wants to admit that someone who failed flight school could come from their city. What fucking horrible place now that I think of it. I never want to go back. Maybe that's why no Pegasus ever comes back. They just don't like Cloudsdale. Your goddamn worthless ponies can hardly call yourself Pegasus," Boss spoke from the door. He was swaying ever so slightly as the carriage was lifted and moved to an unknown location. "Useless failures is what you are. No pony comes back from exile. Regardless of reason, can't even pass your goddamn test. You three make me sick. Skulu jumped up from her seat, lifted herself into the air with her wings, and dove legs first at Boss. You shut the hell up about us. You have no right to treat others like this. Boss raised the hoof and backhanded Skulu out of the air onto the floor. I can treat you however I want. You hardly classify as ponies to Cloudsdale, or any of Equestria for that matter. Now sit the fuck down and shut up until you get to your destination. Where are we being taken anyways? Not like we can only tell anyone now. I'm sure as the deliverers, you guys should know, Orion cautiously reasoned. Hell if I know. We hand this carriage off to ponies in suits. We get a bag full of coins to keep quiet about the whole thing. It's how it's always been for 1,000 years. The three fillies huddled together again, scared of the unknown. They kept quiet as they waded through the unbearable trip, all lost in their own thoughts, friends, family, loved ones, and pets. All will never see them again, and some would never find out why. An hour passed, and then another. Finally, the uncomfortable quiet was broken by a sudden lurch as the carriage stopped in its flight. Ah, Boss smiled. There's my stop. You ponies play nice now. Have fun in wherever the hell you are sent to. The carriage door shuffled open and Boss hopped out with a gust of cloud wind. It was dark outside, with hardly any light to see at all. Skulu stared outside and noticed another figure staring in. It was dressed in a black suit, its tail dyed an unnatural black that never occurred in nature. The face was covered by a dark, loose-fitting mask concealing its mane. All that was visible were rose-colored eyes, staring indifferently at the three ponies inside. They stopped on Skulu momentarily, unrecognizing, but she stared back. A second passed, the dark pony slammed the door shut, and the carriage took off once again. At least we can talk now, Aurora whispered in the dark. But they had nothing to talk about. But with all great things comes a great responsibility, with Cloudsdale being weather stability. The three desolate fools blinked, their eyes awake. Having all resolved to conserve energy for whatever came next, with a loud scraping noise, the doors shook and swung wide open. Several more ponies, obscured by masks and suits, were moving around the area. Skulu blinked against the light from what she was seeing. They were in a cloud building. As her eyes adjusted, she noticed more details. Several of the blackened ponies were rushing around, some holding clipboards, some carrying briefcases, and other important-looking items on their backs. The complex was full of machinery and signs. Pipes ran down the ceiling, and there was a loud whirring running in the background, occasionally joined with other industrial sounds such as crashes and alarms. Skulu gasped. This place, the architecture, it's all so familiar. I think we're in the weather factory. Orion frowned. That can't be right. We were traveling for way too long. We gotta be far away from Equestria now, not to mention the city. Actually, Skulu may be right, Aurora mused. I noticed. It was maybe the same amount of time from when we left the Coliseum to the place the carriage driver swapped. That was what from swap places to here. But I don't know, I'm confused. Maybe that's a coincidence. Welcome, mules. A large and powerful voice commanded. Several of the suited ponies moved to make a way for the deep, dark red Pegasus dressed in a white lab coat. You degenerates are probably wondering where you exactly are, you stupid fools. You are in Cloudsdale, the Rainbow Facility, to be correct. Allow me to show you around. What's going on here? Do you expect to use us as slaves? Because I'd rather be deported, thanks. Skulu yelled. Orion and Aurora got off their seats and stood behind Skulu, nodding in agreement. Like you failures have a choice. You'll be here for the rest of your lives. Oh, I'm sorry, where are my manners? I'm Dr. Atmosphere. My degree isn't a medical one. I shall reassure you. In case you're picturing some dreadful surgery going on behind the scenes, strange how many worthless Pegasi get that idea. No, my degree is in engineering. I'm one of the foracles in this facility. I'm sure you've all had to tour the lower factory. No. The three ponies nodded slowly. unsure of what was going on. Excellent. Who could tell me where the tour begins? Orion spoke up first. Where the spectra comes from upstairs and is mixed. Very good. What pity you utterly useless to the flock. You could have been a smart one, Dr. Atmosphere smiled sadistically and patted Orion on the head. But today we're on the upper floor. Please, follow me. And don't get too far behind or one of my helpers will be forced to encourage you. With that, he winked at the suited ponies. With nods, 3 of them at the rear end leaned forward and jabbed each of the Pegasi with tasers. Shocking them to the ground, Dr. Atmosphere whinnied in laughter as they yelped and fell, and continued into a soft chuckle as they all stood up again. Skulu blinked more tears from her eyes and shook herself again, trying to lose the tingling in her nerves. She turned and quickly looked at each other, the suited ponies, catching one of them in the eye when she could. None of them were the rose-eyed pony from the carriage. Begrudgingly, she started to walk behind the red engineer. You simply must be careful in this department, Dr. Atmosphere began in a tone not unlike the many tour guides in the lower floors. There's plenty of nooks and crannies and vents and vats one could fall into. One must be careful not to hurt themselves. After all, you're all hopeless as it is. Any more so, and even we can't use you. He glanced behind himself maliciously as the 3 fools frowned in insult. They were walking down a series of halls with vibrating machines and assembly lines lining the way, occasionally ducking under low-hanging wires and careful stepping over steaming pipes. As they walked, the building became cooler and cooler. All 3 were watching, sensing, looking for any way out. They couldn't find any or see any in fact. Now, let me tell you a story. Cloudsdale is where the weather is made. Without us, the rest of Equestria would starve, freeze, drown, and generally not a very happy place. That gives us a special honor. One that can't be tainted by an incompetent fool like you. How could the world look up and trust us if Pegasi like you are flying around wearing the Cloudsdale name? No. We needed to do something with all of you. Then we got a delicious idea. One day over 1,000 years ago, there were some smart ponies back then. I'll say. You don't find too many of them these days, but I digress. Here now. Through these doors quickly now, before more encouragement is applied. Dr. Atmosphere opened a heavy-looking door in a cramped corridor and offered a hoof inside. Skulu stared up at him. He glanced at his suited pony. Skulu and the others walked inside as he laughed again. Enjoy the rest of your pitiful life, and with that, he slammed the door closed. They all turned and looked at a big room that they had been led to. It was fairly open and empty, almost like a theater room. At the end of the room, there were 6 square vats, each one nearly full of individual spectra. Above them was a peculiar-looking machine. From the central stack, 6 hoses broke off and lead above each of them into the individual vats. At the top of the stack was a single opening, red with rust, despite the rest of the machine to be shiny and clean. Even further above that was a fairly complex-looking object, with chains and gears hanging off of beams and pipes, loosely. Running even higher than the whole machine was a length of scaffolding with doors on either side leading out of the room. Down on the floor, a small collection of defeated crying ponies sat, chatting quietly. Those who stare, those are from the other flight school across town, Aurora informed, sounding shocked. And those other ponies sitting over there. See, I remember a trip when we went on once with Levitating Acres Private School. I remembered them from that trip. So is this where all the failures go? Not departed, but forced to work here forever? Orion sobbed quietly in exchanging for helping someone. He had doomed himself and his good friend to a life of servitude. Skulu reached a reassuring wind over and lifted up his chin. She smiled at him, understanding his depression. At least we don't have to go through it alone, she cooed softly. Suddenly, there was a commotion in a group of ex-students. One pony from an unidentified school took off, headed towards one of the doors on the scaffolding. Immediately, 2 suited ponies launched at record speed and both clipped the flyaway with their tasers. The pony spasmed in air and then dropped like a stone, with an audible crack as he landed, and a violent burst of twitching, and all the other ponies walked back, staring horrified as their friend. They watched hopefully for a long time. He didn't move. Some cried softly, others turned away, too far confused to feel any more emotions. I guess that option's out, Aurora said to no one in particular. But you can't fly right now anyways, Orion questioned. That medic guy, Patches or whatever he was called, he popped my wings back into their joints and bandaged up where my skin tore, but I won't be winning any races. But I can fly again. They slowly walked forwards and joined a group of ponies looking at each other with understanding sorrow. Eyes front and center, you inept mules, one of the stood ponies shouted. After the previous display, no pony challenged that order and stared at the scaffolding just as one of the doors opened. How, you ask, are they up to the task? To which the answer is in a simple facility. A few official-looking Pegasi walked in on the scaffolding and turned to look down on the group with disgust. One of them was holding a small podium in the center and began speaking loudly and clearly. But now you're clearly determined that you are not going into exile. There's no deportation. There never was. You're in the factory. You will never leave the factory, and while you may be called useless, it's not entirely true. You're worthless to the flock as a pony, but you still have purpose. Purpose to all the ponies in this land, far and wide. You gotta help us make rainbows, beautiful, magical rainbows. Doesn't that excite you? The mysterious announcer grinned ecstatically, taking in all the disgusted looks from every foal on the floor below him. I thought so, he chuckled. It's such an honor, you know. It leaves every pony entrusted with the task speechless, too. Now, do we have any volunteers? Again, every pony both glared with hate. One brave pony, a light pink one from Levitating Acres, walked forward with a few steps and then yelled, "How can you ever get away with this? How could Celestia or even Luna know about this or tolerate it? It's slavery. It's torture." I think you'll find it's more than that. A second official pony walked out in the shadows and walked up to the podium. The pony was in a suit and mask. The first pony walked off the podium and allowed the second to talk. Skulu noticed that it was the rose-eyed pony from before. She watched more intently now. The voice was familiar. 1,000 years ago, when Celestia banished Luna from Equestria and sent her to the moon, she was charged with 3 tasks. She was originally in charge of raising the sun and showering the land with rainbows, but with the moon being an additional task, she had to hand down the responsibility of rainbows. Celestia entrusted the Pegasi Cloudsdale to make the rainbows for her from then on. For the first dozen years, we were given special powerful unicorns to help create spectra. Spectra is pure pigment, pure color. Everything is full of spectra, but you just can't harvest it. You can never separate color from an object, so it was made artificially with magic. The masked pony never took her eyes off the brave pink one. That is until our top engineers made a breakthrough. They discovered an ingenious way to extract pigment. It was so beautiful even a simple machine could do it. But it couldn't be done with just anything. The conditions had to be right. What did those horrible people do? The pink Pegasus screamed, growing angrier by the minute. The mysterious pony whipped off her mask, unveiling more than the rose eyes. Her skin was a light cyan blue, and her mane was a gorgeous rainbow. Several of the fillies gasped. Skulu's knees weakened as it hit her. It was Rainbow Dash. Skulu's thoughts raced through her mind and the room started spinning. It couldn't be an evil twin, maybe? Perhaps a neglected sister? Rainbow Dash couldn't be this evil. She was not her friend. She was her friend, her mentor, her only family, not even if by blood. How? Was this all she could think? It had to be live ponies. Only in ponies where magic and spectra ran freely together. Rainbow Dash drew her head back and laughed menacingly. Only then could the spectra be separated. It was such a beautiful idea, such a wonderfully horrible idea. It worked so well, but we created exponentially more rainbows of better quality with real spectra. And They finally gave us a way to prevent Cloudsdale from being tainted by all those horrible Pegasus which couldn't fly. Skulu couldn't take it. While other ponies were exclaiming their disgust and fear, running and screaming for where they came in, backing off as sued ponies surrounded them and hurried them back to the center of the floor, Skulu couldn't take it anymore. "I thought you loved me," she wailed, cutting Rainbow Dash's laughter short. "What?" She turned and noticed the amber orange Pegasus. "I thought you loved me. How could you do this to me? I thought you cared for me. After all the help all my life, you treated me like a little sister. And I treated you like my big sister. You were my big sister to me. You were the only family I ever had, and you knew it." Tears were pouring down her face now, obscuring her vision again. Her throat hurt from the crying and shouting, but she just couldn't stop. After everything, you're just going to let me die? I tried so hard for you." She stared at the floor for a moment. Everything was silent. Then Skulu looked up slowly, and while she couldn't see it for the sadness in her eyes, she looked straight at Rainbow, straight into those rosy eyes, past them and deep into Rainbow Dash herself. "I thought you loved me." Rainbow Dash turned to look. Her eyes revealed no emotion, no love, no care, only apathy. Slowly, however, they glared at Skulu. Pure, seething hate erupted from Rainbow Dash's mouth, and she screamed in return, "I did love you. I tried so hard for you. I taught you everything I knew and hoped you would pass your test. You had it in you, kid. I knew they did it here. Ever since I performed that sonic rainbow and they approached me, they wanted to find more ways to make Spectrum. They thought if I was capable of making rainbows, I can help them make its components. Well, they couldn't. But I learned a lot about this place. I'm the manager here now. You know I worked my way up in secret, pretending to be the only simple with I control. How do you think I could afford that massive house over at Ponyville? How do you?" She trailed, shaking her head, remembering her anger suddenly. "I tried, alright? It was up to you to save yourself. You didn't just fail yourself. You didn't just fail Cloudsdale, you failed me. And that's the worst thing you could have done. You aren't just dead to Cloudsdale now. You're dead to me." The room tilted as Skulu tried to comprehend what she was told. Her mind broke as she totally was unable to focus on anything. She stumbled slightly until Orion held open a wing and she clung to it for stability. Rainbow Dash noticed this and yelled with more fury, "You can't have happiness. You ruined me. Now I'll ruin you. Workers, the brown one there. Him first." "No!" Skulu, Aurora, and Orion all jumped. Suited ponies cornered Orion, pushing the other two to the side. He tried to leap out of the way to run, but one of the stallions spun around and kicked at him. The hoof connected to his shoulder, and Orion collapsed with a shout. "Get back!" more suits yelled at Aurora and Skulu as they dragged the whimpering Orion to the front of the room. The giant machine at the back started turning to life, and the assembly of chains lifted off at the top and moved forward towards the floor. Every pony noticed that there were shackles now, and the suits clasped Orion into them. Braving a look up, he turned to Skulu. "Don't worry, Scoots. I love you. Goodbye." "Goodbye, Orion," Skulu gasped. I love you, too." With that, the chains pulled tighter and lifted the brown Pegasus all the way up to the gears. The chains grew taut and stretched each of Orion's limbs straight up and down. "We find the machine works better if the ribs are broken," Rainbow Dash explained apathetically as the chains spun around in opposite directions, twisting Orion. His screams almost covered the echoing pops and shattering noises. One or two jagged bones tore through his side, and his yells faded to a slow, quiet rattle of breath. The chains untwisted and the shackles opened, dropping the shattered pony into the single opening. Skulu watched in horror, her brain overcome with what was happening, detached from all emotion. She noticed that the top of the machine wasn't rusty. It was blood, just like what was being tossed up and down from the mangled remains of Orion. As the rest of his body was swallowed into the great machine, finishing with one lone hoof directed straight up, and then nothing was left. As the hoses over the green and red bats of Spectrum started spewing their brilliant colors, Skulu's vision began to fade, and the last thing she noticed was Aurora's concerned, broken voice saying her name as Skulu flopped to the side. In the Rainbow Factory, where your fears and horrors come true. In the Rainbow Factory, where not a single soul gets through. Skulu, get up. Get up now. Hurry. Skulu, wake up, wake up. Skulu shook her head briefly, wondering where she was and what was happening. In the flash, it all came back, and she jumped to her feet. Well, hooves, technically. Aurora was shaking her fright and casing her face. The suits were starting to approach the two now. Tasers and shackles up and ready. Skulu, they're coming for us. What do we do? Skulu looked for an opening. All the doors were blocked, except for one. On the scaffolding, the suit ponies were slowly approaching, not rushing in order to prevent the fillies from freaking out. Fear was their tool. Skulu spun around looking for an exit. There was only one, she realized. I have a plan. She whispered to Aurora. What's that? Clear, fly, fall, complete. Aurora nodded in understanding, her eyes widening. She repeated louder now, so the other frightened fillies could hear. Clear, fly, fall, complete. Got it? 1. Skulu started counting. 2. Aurora squeaked as she backed into Skulu. The suits were a mere feet away now. 3. A collective shout reverberated around the room as every filly that they could actually fly took off. The suit ponies gasped and fell back, unsure of where to go. There was too much confusion. A few of the faster thinking ones took off as well, tasers at the ready, aiming at the closest Pegasus they could take. Step 1, Skulu screamed. Clear. With her command, as the failures started targeting the dark ponies in droves, hooves connected with heads, and while some of the students fell lifeless to the floor. The majority of casualties were the suited ponies. Skulu and Aurora landed on the scaffolding right by the door and reached to open it. It was locked. Oh God, what do we do now? Aurora cried. We're still unclear. She shouted, turning around and bugging the door. Aurora followed her, focusing the brunt of her blows on the part of the wall where the latch would be. Rainbow Dash was on the other side of the scaffolding, recovered from her initial shock of the rebellion, and noticed Skulu pounding on the door. Kill her, she screamed at the other important-looking ponies. Kill her now. She started to gallop towards the fillies, forgetting her wings momentarily. Skulu closed her eyes, pounding harder and harder at the door. It started to creak and splinter. Any second now, she thought. Rainbow Dash will get here. It's over. I'm doomed. She would have cried, but there was no more tears left. But nothing came. The door started to split from its frame. Now leaning inward, it wouldn't be long until it was open. She opened her clenched eyes, peeking up at the scaffolding, and all the remaining ponies were there, pressing together, holding the enraged blue Pegasus and her cronies back. They wouldn't last long, however, and even as Skulu watched, twitching and yelping ponies were falling to the floor below. Some even landing in the great maw of the Spectrum machine. The pink pony from Levitating Acres was there, and she turned to Skulu and Aurora just as the door blew back into the hall behind. Fly, the pink pony demanded with pain in her voice. She opened her mouth to speak again, but was cut short as the pile of Pegasus blew apart with Rainbow Dash standing and reaching the opening. She was on her two back hooves, her front two rolling in the air. A small gash down her side leaked red, and her multicolored mane was torn in a patch. An unearthly howl passed her lips, and her rose eyes were drained of any sanity that was left. Come on, Aurora, Skulu pleaded as she spun around. We gotta fly if we're going to live. I can't. This is too much. I haven't healed. Aurora looked at Skulu with wide open eyes. You go, Skulu. Tell everyone what happened here. Let them know. She glanced back at the wall of students, almost bare now, as Rainbow Dash's bloodlust tore them to pieces. Her blue coat was now glistening crimson, almost dripping as she ignored the need to live for the live ponies. There would be more. Cloudsdale could take a few shortage of rainbows, but in another few months, there would be more classes, more failures. But for now, all she knew is that Skulu had to die, violently if possible. Decades of working for the Rainbow Factory fractured her. She was the only one allowed in the public, and keeping the horrible secret with her since childhood had only led to psychological problems with no amount of therapy could cure. Skulu was the last link to on Saturday, and her failure had deleted that. There was no logic in her mind anymore. No care, no capacity for compassion, only hate. Pure concentrated and evil hatred filled the gap of her love for Skulu had once occupied. Rainbow Dash was no more, only this monster remained. I hardly knew you, Aurora. Skulu cooed softly into the yellow Pegasus behind her. I'm sorry I never knew you until all this. I'm sorry we had to meet like this, and I'm sorry that we had to be part like this, she sniffled. She had found more tears. And the meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting, Aurora reassured Skulu. Now you've heard the other pony. Fly, Skulu. Fly. Goodbye. Goodbye, Aurora. With that, Skulu levitated and spun around, looking into the yellow pony's eyes one last time and launched down the cramped corridor. She had no idea where she was going, but with any chance of freedom was one she had to take. Aurora blinked a couple times, standing in front of the door. Rainbow Dash would have at least one obstacle in her way to Skulu. The blue pony tossed the last of the other students over the scaffolding and slowly walked towards Aurora. How cute. You'd think that you, a useless broken pile of manure, could possibly stand my way? You really make me laugh. None of you can compete with the awesome power I have. Love can overcome all evils in this world, Aurora straightened herself in rebellion as Rainbow Dash stopped in front of her. Aurora stayed in front of Dash, bearing her entry down the corridor beyond. Well then, bitch, let's see if love will overcome this one. And with that, Rainbow Dash grabbed one of Aurora's bandaged wings and pulled, tearing it off of her completely. Aurora collapsed to her knees, grinding her teeth in horrible pain, but she didn't scream. She wouldn't give in to Rainbow Dash. Rainbow grabbed the other wing and dragged her, kicking and moaning, down to the center of the scaffolding. She lifted Aurora up by the wing, laughing quietly to herself as the look of intense agony appeared on Aurora's face. Rainbow Dash took to the air, bringing the squirming yellow and green pony with her over to the top of the machine. With a squeak of evil laughter, she jerked at the wing, and her hoof, it too disconnected from the now convulsing Pegasus, and Aurora fell. She landed head first. The door on the scaffolding closed with a gust of wind just as the machine began pumping out the brightest greens and yellows it had ever produced, and there was no one around to see it. Skulu glanced backwards momentarily, her heart pounding. The noise of the constant thump drowned out any other sound in her head, her ears throbbing around with it. The corridor was just like the one that led to the theater room, cramped with dozens of obstacles jutting out at random intervals. Straight through her, maybe 500 meters down, the bloody mare that used to be Rainbow Dash was cruising along herself. Both Pegasi were completely straight, hooves forward, wings being at an impossible count, one trying to escape and the other to capture. Skulu looked forward again, focused on what lay ahead of her. That's all that matters, she thought. What's ahead of me? There's no changing what's behind me. Ignore it. Focus. For the second time in many days, a flood of instinct overtook Skulu, and despite terror she felt in her body, the sorrow had surrounded her and the evil behind her. Her worries melted away as the thought of flying encased her very being. Down the wires and pipes, she ducked up and around various workers. Those complaints and shouts were ignored, only to be repeated momentarily as the raging pony behind collided with them, her body doing the flying. Skulu's thoughts turned to escape opportunities, but she whipped around sharp corners at impossible speed, zipped up and down countless seats of stairs, trying to shake her murderous tail, but to no avail. She contemplated every nook and cranny she passed, briefly considering hiding. She struck that idea down. As insane as Rainbow Dash may be, she was still too smart to overlook any possible spot Skulu may be in. But there ahead of her, Skulu found a solution. A garbage vent of some kind, sticking out from the wall to the floor below. Maybe she thought to where it may lead, whether out of the factory or some incinerator that she couldn't tell, but it was probably worth the risk. She snuck one last glance behind her to make sure the unstable mare was far away enough. Rainbow Dash was paying no attention to any hazard as she saw her prey tearing through electrical wires and ricocheting off heated pipes, going through any obstacle rather than around it to save them, but the collisions had slowed her down enough to give Skulu a chance. She slammed to the sun hull over the open vent, hoping her life. Fall, she muttered, closing her eyes and wings, resisting the urge to flap. Immediately, she closed her eyes, hoping for the best of where this vent led. 1, 2, 3. She opened her eyes and her wings and looked up, hovering. Rainbow Dash was up above, looking down to the vent. Her eyes were buggy and twitched. Her hooves pounded on the edge of the vent. She was too large to follow, the filly having barely made it in herself. But then the anger in her face vanished, only to be replaced by a malicious grin. She started laughing again, the cackle echoing down the vent and reverberating in Skulu's mind. "You moron, you never did a good sense of direction," she teased, laughing again. Skulu finally looked up, getting her bearings straight. "Oh no," she squealed. She was in the theater room again, only by now it was full of suited ponies. Circling her, their masked faces seemed to be grinning at her as Rainbow Dash shouted orders down the vent. "Don't let her die. I must do it. Subdue her. Catch her." She whinnied in glorious victory as the suits shocked Skulu with a taser, and her limp body began falling from the air, caught her and brought her to the floor. Skulu blacked out momentarily as the electricity passed through her, but she came lying on the cold-clad floor, metal shackles preventing her from moving. She struggled to get free. She could hardly shake, and the chains lifted her slightly, bringing up her small body eye to eye with a Pegasus in front of her. The pony was a deep blood red, glistening in the artificial light of the factory. Her mane had small spots of glorious colors of the rainbow, but was mostly the same red color as the coat of her fur. Chunks of skin were missing from small spots, and her hair was ripped in some places, bald patches of skin in others. The only clue Skulu had is to who used to be where the rose irises focused on her. Any final words, you miserable, worthless whore of a fool? Skulu brought her chin high, still demanding even the tiniest fraction of dignity. "You have beautiful eyes," she cooed, soft yet clearly. Wow, that was so long. Like, I'm pretty sure this was one of the longest creepypastas I've ever did. I mean, the other longest, pastas I ever did was, the Lion King creepypasta, Cupcakes, and, Squidward Suicide, I think. Yeah, it was around those, other three that got, and getting this abrupt ending of seeing Skulu die is quite interesting. Now, the only cliche about this is, I mean, sure, swearing is okay, but I didn't expect there to be swears in this pasta, so, I'll leave a warning in the description below if you're about to watch it again. I don't know. It's up to me. Then again, Rainbow Dash is my favorite, Pegasus from the main 6, so yeah. Just like Cupcakes, this creepypasta was also very famous for scarring the pony community entirely, with the instances of the death and violence. Also, this creepypasta got, I think, number 2 in the Watch Pony, creepypasta countdown, because, Cupcakes got, number 1 for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, Cupcakes was a lot shorter than Rainbow Factory. Then again, it is just a creepypasta, and yeah. What creepypasta do you want me to read next? And feel free to leave a request in the comment section down below. You can even leave good comments on how you thought of me reading the story and what story you want me to read next. If you liked this video, liked it, and feel free to subscribe. This is Geoffrey Sambursky, and I am out.